Okay, doing a quick test to see if everything's working and go from there real quick, find out. Okay, doing a quick test to see if everything's working and go from there real quick, find out. Alright, so X is working good. Let me see real quick, find Odyssey's working great. Let's see what YouTube sounds. Okay, doing. Alright, YouTube sounds good. Gotta hit refresh on Rumble again. See what that sounds like. Gotta hit refresh. Sounds good. And Twitch. See what that sounds like. Alright, Twitch sounds good as well. Okay, so I'm just setting up right now. I've got 7 minutes to go until the beginning of the hour. I didn't have any coffee made. Somebody ended up drinking it all, so I had to settle with a Diet Coke. I might go in and grab one before I start again. Now I want to say tonight I have the chats turned off. There's no chatting. I'm not gonna read anything in the chats. And the music, I'm not going to play any of the music either. Tonight I am going to go into the spiritual stuff that I was talking about before. I'll start talking about some of that. Now, to be honest with you, it's over, or I usually do my streams at about 3 hours, so that isn't really for what, 21 years. That's really not enough time to be talking about all of it. I'll get through as much as I can, but I don't know. I could be wrong too. I mean, it could be only like maybe 2 hours worth of stuff, but I've made a PowerPoint again, just like I did when I did my whole thing about streaming and everything. I didn't make anything elaborate. I just went through, made a PowerPoint with just one word to it, maybe a short sentence, so that I could kind of describe what it is that, or describe what it is while I'm talking, so that I can stay on focus. But other than that, everything's good. Do a last check on the audio, or describe. Now, if you guys want to make comments, or do maybe a short, and I can I can check it afterwards and see, maybe answer it. Check it afterwards. And there we go. Yeah, it's all looking good. So 4 more minutes to go. Now, one thing that you can do if you want to is you can go in and leave comments. That's a good thing. I love to have conversations in my comment section, so feel free to do that. Another thing too is I'm not going to do like 2 or 3 different topics. It's just going to be this one topic, so we'll get through it as much as I can. I feel awkward really about talking about this stuff. It's stuff that I have learned, but there's always circumstances, so getting personal is kind of a touchy thing for a lot of people when it comes to this stuff. But I'm gonna give it a shot, see what it does, or see how it works out. Three minutes to go. Everything looks good so far, so Yeah, and that symbol that's on there too, that is all. It was inspired by a buddy of mine. His name's Mr. Robot, or he goes by Mr. Robot on Minds.com. If you guys want to check him out, it's a pretty cool dude. They're actually coming through. That's actually coming through pretty good on the streams. I'm impressed. Alright. So far, so good. Let me run back in there and grab me another soda. I'll be right back. Okay, so we are ready to go. I'm going to do my countdown and get started. 3, 2, 1, now. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Live with Roger Hanson. Tonight is going to be a long night for me. Like I said, off camera or off recording, I am going to forego the music for tonight, as well as any comments through chat. There's no chat attached, and tonight I'm also going to just stick to one topic instead of doing multiple topics like I've been doing. Oh, excuse me. Just got me a Diet Coke. Didn't have any coffee, so now. Tonight I'm also just going to stick to one topic, and the reason for that was because last week I said I was going to discuss spiritual stuff that I've learned in my life, and I'm going to go over that, and I feel a lot better doing that on my own rather than having people here to do it. And it's like I said, this is like 21 odd years of stuff that I've learned, and I've experienced. So I doubt if I could get 3 hours or all of it in 3 hours, but I'll do my best to discuss it. Now, before I even start talking about that, one thing I do want to discuss is before any of this spiritual stuff actually took place, you know what I mean, and learning about it and everything. For me personally, and I've noticed that goes along with a lot of other people as well, but for me personally, I didn't get into anything that was spiritual until I hit rock bottom, basically. Whenever things weren't freaking looking all that great. So that is something that I do have to point out. A lot of people don't really like discussing those kind of things, Now, for me, I ended up having a bad alcohol and drug problem, and that brought me to the point where I ended up having to go through a lot of bad things. I had to hit rock bottom. I got to the point where the pain just got great enough to where I didn't want to go on any longer, you know what I mean? The sickness and stuff like that. So what it was is I basically had to cross over a threshold, and that's a term that I learned, you know. Thresholds are basically just like a door, you know what I mean? You cross through a door, and that's a threshold. You also have a physical threshold, how much pain and suffering that your body can go through until you say enough is enough, you know. It's kind of like playing mercy, and I actually brought this up to somebody else before, and they didn't know what mercy was, but like mercy is where you grip your hands together with another person and you play a game of mercy where you apply pressure until one of the two people says mercy and the game's over. So the person who actually makes the other person feel pain enough is the one who wins it. And that's basically what happened with me, you know. It was a game of mercy where the pain got great enough and I had to walk through that threshold in order to have what's termed as a moment of clarity. Now, moment of clarity is something that happens quite a few times in people's lives, you know, but it's very quick, and if you don't reach somebody during that moment of clarity, it's hard to really reach them and get them to where they actually want to change. And that's what I had to do. I had that moment of clarity where somebody was able to, you know, reach out to me, and things just started happening. So that's basically what happened to me. Now, for me, this whole thing about spiritual experiences, you know, I can't for sure say that I actually had a spiritual experience or not. I know that when I sobered up, something happened, you know what I mean? Because before this point, when I did finally sober up, I'd already been to detox quite a few times, you know what I mean, and it never worked, but for some reason it worked this time, and I've been sober since June the 14th, 2003, and that makes it 21 years, I believe, yeah, so, but with that being said, I wanted to mention those things, you know, but the thing of it was like something happened, and I've had no explanation for what happened. It's just I can say that a lot of the people that were put in my path actually helped me out along the way, and I'm grateful for that, because I had to learn things, you know. I had to learn about powerlessness, you know. We all run around in the world thinking that we have, you know, power, and that we're in control. And the truth of the matter is, and even today, I find it to be this way. We really don't have much control. You know what I mean? The world is more about compliance than what it is about anything else. And it's a hard thing for people to stomach, you know. A lot of the things that I have to say when it comes to spirituality isn't popular. It's not, it goes against the grain. As a matter of fact, a lot of this stuff that I mentioned, a lot of people are going to not like, because these are things that you have to do, and a lot of it is things that people don't want to do. And being powerless is one of them, you know. Figuring out how much power you really have and how much control you really have is a big thing, and becoming compliant and things of that nature, you know. Now, for me, um, the control issue was something that I had an issue about. Now that had to do a lot with a story that I'd heard where this guy was talking about it's like going to, and I always try to say this, but I always mess it up. I'll do my best, but I've mentioned it before, but here recently. But it's kind of like going into a drive up section at a fast food joint, like at McDonald's. You know, when you get up there, and the lady over the microphone turns around and she tells you freaking, you know, that or no, actually, you're waiting, and it's taking forever because the car's in front of you, so you become impatient because you want to get up there to make your order. So when you sit there, you're getting impatient, and then when you finally get up to the mic, the lady on the mic turns around and freaking rushes you and wants your order. Now you're getting freaking frustrated because instead of waiting, now they're trying to rush you, you know. So whenever you finally get the order done, you turn around and get up there and you want to pick up your order. They turn around and they scuffle you ahead so that they can let you park, and then they can bring the food out to you because they're running late, you know, and people are backed up. So all of a sudden now you're getting frustrated because you have to wait again. So in that whole process, it's a matter of waiting, being rushed, and then waiting again. And out of all that, you become frustrated because you think that you have control, you know, and that you have power, and how dare these people make you do it. When in reality, all you had to do is practice compliance, you know, just be patient. And tolerance and patience is a big deal, you know. Be patient, be compliant, wait until you get your order, and then be done with it. But your frustrations get in the way, and that's all because you think that you have power and you have control over things, you know. Now, that's one reason why it's important to have somebody that you can have for an accountability partner, you know what I mean? Because when it comes to life, if you have somebody that you can do that with, then it helps you when it comes to, you know, you being a control freak and things of that nature. Now, manageability versus unmanageability is something that was always a big issue, and that's something that I really do believe is something that's important, okay, to is important. But I also think that, like, whenever you're thinking on spiritual principles, you know, stuff of that nature, and things like that, you need to freaking understand that a lot of things in life is unmanageability. I mean, you can manage all you want. You can run around trying to manage everything and stuff and create planners and things of that nature, but just don't expect everything to work out for you, you know what I mean? Go ahead and create a planner, but I'd suggest that, you know, like I said, you know, get you an accountability partner, somebody that you can trust, and run it by that person, run it by somebody, you know what I mean? Find out if maybe you're overdoing it, because a lot of people likes to overdo it a lot, you know. And always remember, you know, it's alright to make plans, just don't expect the outcome. And the reason why I always say that is because of expectations. Now, a lot of us, we like to set expectations on ourselves and the people around us. And the thing about expectations is whenever expectations aren't met, they can cause issues. They can cause resentment, frustration, anger, things of that nature. So it's it's not really a good idea to set expectations on people. I hear people all the time talking about that, saying, "Oh, it's okay to set expectations," and I just don't agree with that. I think that setting expectations on people and on yourself only sets yourself up for failure. Acceptance is something that is a thing that people really don't like to hear. You know what I mean? You got to accept people, places, and things as being exactly the way they are at that moment. You know what I mean? It's exactly the way things are supposed to be at that time and place. And once you start realizing that, then you start having, you start learning more. You know what I mean? Now, the whole thing about that, though, about acceptance, is you have to start learning how to develop honesty. Now, when I talk about honesty, I'm not talking about just being honest with others, which is important, but there's also being honest with yourself and being honest with ourselves, because, first of all, being honest with others, you have to also be careful about that, and I can get into that later on. But being honest with others is important. Try to be as honest as you can be with everybody. You don't have to be brutally honest. You can show a little bit of restraint, a little bit of taste and everything, but you can be honest with them. And sometimes it's not best to be honest. And in those situations, that's something that we can talk about here in a little bit. But the most important thing, though, out of honesty is being honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself, then who can you be honest with? So honesty with yourself is more important when it comes to priorities. Always make sure that you're at least being honest with yourself. Now, the one thing that I know that people have a problem with, and the reason why it's important for me to be honest with myself, is because of denial. And this is something that a lot of people have issues with. They have a hard time believing in denial. They don't believe that they literally have denial. And the reason, or when I say denial too, I'm not saying that as a blanket statement, like you're not just in denial about everything. We all have denial on different levels and in different aspects of our lives. So in one area you could be honest with yourself, but in another area you could be in complete and total denial. And that is the thing that I'm talking about. You have to be honest with yourself and be able to recognize when you're in denial about something and get over that, because that's something that really holds you back. And like I said, there's a lot of people who just straight out refuse to admit that they're in any form of denial whatsoever. Now, with that being said, I also want to get into believing in God and believing in a higher power, or however you want to talk about it. For me, I had to learn things that were important to me, or that helped me, basically, things that kept me sane. And the one thing I had to learn was the term God of my understanding. For the longest time, whenever I heard the word God, I always thought that God was this universal word that everybody believed in, and that if I didn't believe in the same God that you're describing to me, that I didn't have, or that I didn't believe in some kind of real God. And the truth of the matter was I was completely wrong about it. We all have a God of our understanding, different God of our understanding. And I had to realize that, like, the way you believe in God and the way I believe in God are two completely different things altogether. And it doesn't matter who it, it is, that's just basically the way it is. I mean, nobody believes in exactly the same God, you know. And that's a hard concept for a lot of people to understand, and it's something that I had to grasp onto as well. Now, I know that when it comes to higher powers, a lot of people um, also substituted, God for, the word higher power, and when they do that, they can use like a group, which that's what I did when I was in AA. The group was my higher power, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you go to church, you can substitute the church for your higher power. These are powers that are greater than you, and that's something that I had to learn as well. This goes back to the whole power thing, and it talks about being powerless and what is power and what's control. Like for me, I didn't. I mean, well, for anybody really, if you stop and you think about how much control you have, you really don't have very much control. I tried to use an example of growing a tree, planting a seed, planting with Karma, and she just had a hard time with understanding it. I can plant the seed, I can water the seed, and after I plant the seed and I water the seed, I can freaking give it fertilizer and everything to help it grow, but I personally can't cause that flower to grow. I can't cause that flower to grow up straight and perfect the way that I want it to grow up. It does that on its own. It gets its nutrients from me, yes, and stuff like that, but it also has to have the sun as well, so I'm not in complete and total control. And that is something that I had to understand when it comes to this God of my understanding and a power greater than myself. I ended up working through a lot of that stuff, and that was a concept that I finally actually ended up figuring out, but it took me a while. And that brings me to this whole thing on faith. Now, faith to a lot of people is believing in something that's unseen, and I think a lot of people believe that whenever you say the word faith, you're talking about just God. But for me personally, I found out that people have faith in a lot more things than just God. People believe that electricity exists. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to see electric running through the current, or the current running through the wires, to believe that it's there. You know what I mean? Now, whenever you go to turn on a light switch, as long as you paid that bill, you expect the electricity to go up to the light and turn the light on. So you don't see the electricity going up to that light, but you know that it's going to happen because you paid the bill. Now, this is the whole thing with expectations as well. You expect that light to come on when you turn that light switch on because you've paid your bill. But what if it doesn't happen? Because you've expected that electricity to go up into that light and it didn't work. You become frustrated and upset because you expected that to happen and it didn't happen the way you thought it was. Something could have happened with your electric, your light switch could be out. It's even in a plug-in, you know what I mean? The plug-in could have been out. Something could have happened. It could have been that that a bill was misplaced, or nobody paid the bill. It could have been anything, but because you expected that light to come on, you're upset because it's not doing what you expected it to do. So it kind of falls into the whole expectations thing of it, you know what I mean? Now, with faith as well as you can also go the route of believing in something outside of yourself, like a group. Whenever it comes to me, whenever I was first sobering up, having a group around was very important. That's why I went to meetings, and I got advice and suggestions from people that were in the program, and that really helped me out. That was something that I had to do in order to stay sober and stuff. So that is a form of faith, having faith that these people are going to give you good advice and help you making decisions and stuff of that nature, and that's what they did. I had really, really good people that I can honestly say was there to help me. Robert Rayleigh, who, by the way, he's okay with me saying his last name. I know he is. He was one of my sponsors, and he really helped me out. I actually did my 5th step with him, and he helped me through that. And that was really important to me. I also had a few other people that were there too with me, and I just, for me, I needed this group of people to freaking come through and help me out. And if anybody, and this doesn't have to do with alcohol or drugs, this has to do with every day in life. If you have a group of people that you know of that you can trust and that you can be around with, you can make that your higher power. You can make that something that freaking helps you out with the problems you're having. And like I said, it doesn't have to do with alcohol or drugs. Well, it does, but it's a lot more than that. It could be mental illness. It could be just hardships that are going on in your life. Churches. You've got people that you can rely on, and talk to. So that is very important. Believing in something outside of ourselves, because we get so caught up in ourselves that we forget about the fact that there's other people. You know what I mean? There's other people in the world, and it's not all about us. It really comes down to the whole thing about being selfish and self-centered. Selfishness and self-centered has more to do with just an attitude of being, oh yeah, whatever. You can be selfish and self-centered and be the nicest person on the face of the earth. That's an idea and a concept that's really hard for people to grasp. Because it's not something that most people think. You know what I mean? The whole world rotates around you and nothing else. You know what I mean? All these bad things are happening to you, and it's because God has done this to me. You know what I mean? It's, all of a sudden you're standing there and it rains on you, and that was because God decided it needed to rain on you. He took this cloud and he just put it over the top of you, and he made it rain on you. That's complete nonsense. And that's the thing that I had to learn. I had to learn stuff like that. I had to learn that it rained on me because it rained on everybody. You know what I mean? It rained on everybody, period. It wasn't just because of me. So that's a form of self-centeredness, about it being all about me. So this is things that I had to learn. I had to learn that these were the kind of behaviors and the kind of thoughts that I needed to get out of my mind and my actions. And I had to learn how to become open-minded. You know, now being open-minded is very tricky. It's about trying something new. And you have to give up old ideas for a new way of life, basically. If you want something new in your life, then those old ideas and those old ways of living aren't working, and they need to be. You need to give up on them and try something new. You know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if you're in your life, if you're sitting there and your life is miserable and bad things are happening to you, there's a good chance that you're still doing the same things over and over again, thinking that because if you do it right, this time it'll work. And the truth is no, that's not how it works. Stop doing those things and try something new, okay? And then the insanity will go away. You know, I know that that's a hard thing for people to believe in, and I know that's a hard thing for people to do, but it really is the truth, you know. The moment I started giving up on old ideas and trying to literally do new things instead of going and freaking preoccupying myself on this or that, go off and do something new. Once I started doing that, a whole new way of life started opening up to me. And once that happened, I started becoming more and more open-minded. You know, more and more things started happening to me, and I started experiencing better things. And there was hard times too, you know. But in it all, it comes down to a lot of things. The bad things mostly happen because I like to complicate things. Okay, and this comes back to the powerlessness and the control thing. You know, I like to complicate things and overthink stuff. I was too smart for my own good. That's actually a true saying. You know, you can be too smart for your own good. And sometimes, or a lot of times, most of the time, the best way of dealing with stuff is to keep it simple. Don't complicate things. Sometimes the easiest solution, or the best solution, is the most easiest. You know, that's one thing that I can actually say that is very, very important. So, after saying all that, now we come to this thing about turning our lives over to something outside of ourselves. Okay. Now, I had to do this in order to change my life, you know, for the better, like I was just saying. This is just something that I had to do. By the time I had ended up in treatment, you know, I had nothing. I was down on my dumps. I ended up homeless on the streets. People that I thought cared about me didn't want anything to do with me. At the time, I thought that my family didn't want anything to do with me, so I was pretty much down and out, you know what I mean? And I knew right there when I finally got into treatment that freaking I needed help, basically, and I couldn't do it on my own. The pain and the suffering got great enough, and I was finally able to get to that point where I was willing to listen to other people. And that is basically what started my whole adventure. So I went through and I started learning what I just explained to you. But after that, I had to turn my life over to something that was outside of myself. Okay? Stop thinking that I have all this control and I can manage every single detail in my life. I had to learn that freaking something outside of myself could be more than what I am. You know what I mean? That something outside of myself could have more power than what I had, and I had to. First I learned how to. Well, first of all, I did it because I wanted a better life. You know, I had nothing. My life was horrible, and I wanted things to get better. So first, it ended up being the groups that I was involved in. You know, and then after a while, it didn't happen overnight, but after a while, I ended up getting a sponsor. Now, for anybody who isn't, in the program, NAA or NAA 12-step programs, y- y- this is just an accountability partner. That's all it is. It's just a person that you can run ideas off of. A group of friends that you can go out and get a group of friends who you trust, and run ideas through, talk about serious stuff, small talk even, but the important thing is getting an accountability partner, somebody who you can talk about the more serious things to. That is something that really is important, especially when you need guidance. When things aren't really working out in your life, and you need somebody who you can talk to and who can relate to you and kind of give you good suggestions, things of that nature. Now, when you do this, the whole snare to this is something that people have an issue with now with these accountability partners. The best thing for you to do is choose one who's not close to you. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about just one other person, somebody who's not close to you, but also somebody who's not in your family. That's the most important thing, because you are going to be telling this person confidential stuff that you really don't want your family to know about. Some of it will be about your family. So having an accountability partner that you can sit and talk to and tell them, look, man, I need help with this person's driving me crazy, I need to be able to cope with this or that. That's very important, and you shouldn't feel like you can't talk to them about it. You know what I mean? This should be somebody who is not closely tied to you. Catholics have a Catholic priest that they do this stuff with. Regular churches, they do pastors, preachers. It doesn't have to be that. If you believe in psychology, it could be a therapist, a counselor or psychiatrist, whatever. Just somebody that you can do that way. Or it could be somebody who is really smart about these things, and you know them casually, you know what I mean, but you know them enough to where you trust them. Okay, don't get me wrong on that one. This should be somebody that you trust, because you are going to tell them some intimate secrets that you don't want just anybody to know. It's very, very, very important that you understand that. Now, the reason why it's hard for people to do this stuff is because it takes willingness to do this stuff. You have to be willing to open yourself up to another person and allow them to listen to your deepest, darkest secrets. And this is where things get really crazy, because so far, you have to become honest. You have to become have open-mindedness, and now you have to become willing. So, oh my God, now I have to turn around and I have to freaking be willing to allow this person to sit down with me and let me tell them everything about me, and that's pretty tough. Most people don't have the courage to do that. It's very, very humbling, and it's something that a lot of people, have an issue about. Um, Now, when it comes to accountability partners, this is the reason why it's mostly important. Also, it's also good to go and hang out with this group of people that you feel comfortable with and discuss things, you know what I mean? But having somebody that you can literally talk to on a personal level, and this isn't your husband or your wife, this isn't your kids or your family, this isn't your best friend from down the street. This is somebody that is completely separate from all of that. You know what I mean? Run this stuff by them, because it's very important that you do. Because here in a little bit, I'll go over some of that stuff, and I will kind of elaborate on that. But it's very important that you have a person who can hear this stuff and be able to kind of give you suggestions on some of the directions that you can go on, because suggestions as well, that's really the hard part when it comes to the willingness. So not only do you have to be willing to allow this person to listen to your stuff, but you have to also be willing to take suggestions from them whenever they give you feedback, and that gets into the whole wording behind accountability partner. Okay, getting an accountability partner and being willing to do what needs to be done, because after this it gets into a moral inventory. You have to, I had to learn how to take a moral inventory of myself, and with me, I had to do this with my accountability partner, which was my sponsor, and I had to learn. Right from wrong, basically. So it became very, very very, very tedious and very, very long. I didn't get to this point until about maybe a year and a half after I sobered up. I had to learn. I had to learn how to be all of the stuff that I needed to be in order to, understand this stuff. Because, like I've already mentioned, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Now, this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I had no concept of right from wrong. Alright. Now, when you go to somebody who's a preacher, they've been to college or university, and they've learned about the Bible, for example. These people, when you tell them that you're trying to be honest and open-minded and willing, they automatically understand that means you're trying to remain teachable. Because in order to remain teachable, you have to be honest, open-minded, and willingness. And it's common thought. They actually teach you that as a preacher or a priest or any kind of religious background, But me, I didn't understand those concepts. I didn't know what that was all about. So I had to learn it. In everything, I've learned that life is a process, and I had to understand that. That was something that was very, very hard for me, but I did finally get to understand that. So I got to this point about a year and a half, and even at that point, before I did an inventory of myself and shared it with another person, it took me another 6 months before I could even do that, because I was trying to be I nitpicked. I wanted it to be precise, so that was something else I had to deal with. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm gonna mute this and go to the bathroom. I should have done this at the beginning. I apologize, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I am back. Gotta make sure I'm. Now, before I get started here, let me also say something too. Before I go any further in this conversation, I do want to let people know that what I'm saying here isn't uh, religious. Okay, everything that I'm discussing and the things that I'll be discussing even further is spiritual principles. Now, these are things that is in every single religion. Okay, um, these concepts are. It doesn't matter if you're Buddhist. It doesn't matter if you're Hindu. It doesn't matter if you're Catholic or Christian. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim. These principles are all there. Not only is it in every religion, but pretty much every human being on earth understands that these are good things. Okay, now that includes even atheists, because there's principles here that determines that if you're a good person or if you're a bad person. If you want a better life or if you don't want a better life. And this is basically something that I learned that was an outline. It was an outline. So I ended up learning that, that I needed to achieve this. This was the goal that I needed to achieve. This is a practical path that I had followed that actually worked. There's a lot of things in my life that I can say doesn't work. There's a lot of things that went horribly wrong, things of that nature. But I can honestly tell you that this stuff worked. This isn't from book learning, which I did. I studied up on this stuff, but I also can tell you this is also from experience. This is things that I know personally on a personal level. And I understand that a lot of people have issues about this, and the reason why it has a lot of issues about it is because you have to confront things which are very very personal in your life, things that really aren't great. You know what I mean? Now, with that being said, I also want to say that these things right here have to do with making decisions. I had to make a decision. I had to set goals. Now, manageability, yeah, that's something that I mentioned before. How manageable is my life? Now, that is something that, as time went by, I got better at managing little bits of my life and taking care of things that needed to be done. But that doesn't mean that my life had become manageable. There's still other parts of my life that isn't manageable. So I had to learn how to do it. And the way I did it was I set goals. Now, what I did is I started making goals for the day, and then I'd do it for the week, and then I did it for a month, and so forth, right? And having an accountability partner helped out in this, because I'd make a list every day, and whenever I made that list every day, I would try to go out and make sure that stuff was done. Now, a lot of times, everything on that list never got finished, and that is where a person who would be my accountability partner could had told me, my sponsor had told me, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just take what you didn't do that day and put it on the list for the next day. You see what I mean? It'll get done as long as you keep putting it on the list. So if you don't finish that list that day, just add it to the next one, And eventually, as time went by, things got done, and the more I did it, the better I got at it. It's kind of like with this whole streaming thing, I hear people talk all the time saying, "Oh man, you do so much, you do so," and it's like, I tell them, I was like, "No man, I really don't do all that much. I'm just doing everything according to a schedule, and as time went by, I got better at it. So I set goals, basically. What is it that I want to do today? What is it that I want to do a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, 5 years? I've got all that set up. Now, another thing I want to mention too is with these suggestions, okay? If a person makes a suggestion or wants you to make a decision on something, maybe go into some kind of deal with them, or any kind of decision that's important, an important decision. My suggestion to you would be wait a day before answering. Now, Robert Rayleigh, my old sponsor, is the one who told me that. He's like, whenever you make your goals and stuff like that, when people come up with ideas and stuff and they introduce it to you, you don't have to jump on the bandwagon right then and there. Wait a day. Tell them, well, let me get back to you in a day, and then sit and think about it and make your decision after that day, so that you have the time to decide if it's a good idea or not. Plus, it kind of fills out the other person too, because like if you don't give them an immediate answer, then there's a good chance that person will run off and try to get somebody else to do it too. You know what I mean? Because all they want is somebody to freaking go and do it with. Now, not all the time is that true, but sometimes they do want you specifically to do something with them. But if they aren't, they won't be there the next day. You know what I mean? Or that deal won't be there the next day, or that decision won't have to be made that day or the next day, because they had already moved on to somebody else and they don't need you anymore. So wait a day on making any kind of decisions and stuff like that. That's very important. And I'd suggest, talking to your accountability partner, or a group of people before you make any kind of commitments towards people. Wait a day and discuss it with people that you trust and that you value their suggestions from. So that's something that was very, very important for me to understand. And remaining teachable, that's another thing that's very important. Just remain teachable, and all of this is important, because what it is you're going to start taking inventory of yourself. that's what I had to do. I had to start taking inventory of myself. Um, I ended up taking inventory with my sponsor on my fourth step, and that had to do with accountability. I had to take responsibilities for the wrongs that I did, while at the same time, uh, I had to do like a fourth step and a fifth step, and this had to do with resentments. So I had to make a list of people that I had a resentment for, and I had to not only make the list of it, but then I had to look at where I played a part in it. You know, I had to literally take the other person out of the picture altogether and say, look, now where did I play a part in this situation? You know, even though this person may have punched me in the face, where did I play a part in that? Well, maybe it was because I got loudmouth and started talking shit to him, which pissed him off, and he punched me smack in the freaking kisser. You know what I mean? So I played a part in this because I was talking bad about him and insulting him. You know what I mean? So I had to do stuff like that. And these were people that I had resentments against. You know, where did I play a part in this resentment? Not what they did. It's not what they did to me. It's where did I play a part in it, you know? It's kind of like a switch. All of a sudden, instead of me freaking justifying why I had a resentment towards somebody and why they're such horrible people, I'm saying, now hold on a minute. What did you do? How did you play a part in all this, you know? So that is what it became me taking responsibility for the wrongs I did, while you know, while looking at me and saying this is where I played a part. I also had to be thorough. I had to have thoroughness. Now with this, I had to go back all the way through my life, and I had to name all the people that I could remember who I had a resentment for. From that point on, all the way back to as far back as I could remember, I had to make a list of them. So I started making a list of all these people that I had a resentment against. And there were certain things that I found out from my sponsors, you know, that was very, very important to me. And the one thing I had to have explained to me, and I've brought this up before too, about resentments, and there's a little bit of feedback about it, but what I learned was there's a difference between anger and resentment. Okay, now anger is a natural emotion. Everybody gets angry. Okay, and there's like seconds that emotions are supposed to happen. Like they don't happen and then just stick around. Like anger happens maybe 3-4 seconds and then it's gone. Maybe a little bit longer, but it's gone. Now a resentment is when you get angry and the emotion doesn't go away. Okay, now you have to take that into consideration. So when I'm sitting there and I'm making this list of all the resentments that I had to learn that there's a difference between anger and resentment. So the first thing I had to understand was if I remembered the resentment, then it's a resentment. Okay, so write it down. If it wasn't a resentment and it was just something that I got angry about, then all I'd have to do, or I wouldn't even remember it. Okay, and so if I remembered it, write it down, because I just didn't. You don't remember every time that you got angry with somebody. You know what I'm saying? But when you have a resentment that's strong enough, it could last for years. So. Now, the reason why I had to do this is because I was also taught that, you know, resentment is the number one offender. Okay? Now, for a lot of people that they want to have that conscious contact with their higher power or the God of their understanding, okay? Now, conscious contact with a higher power is blocked because of unfinished business from the past. You need to understand that. And that is something that I really do believe in. You know, unfinished business from the past can literally block you from any kind of conscious contact with a higher power. It could also block you from relationships with people around you and things of that nature because you have unfinished business from the past that really bog you down. And these are things that I have had to deal with even to this day. You know, I have two sons of mine. You know, that I had to deal with. I got over resentments with their parents, but you know, because of a lot of issues that we had, my sons never got a chance to really spend time with me. And when they did finally start spending times with me, then they didn't really like me all that well. So now I've got to work on trying to get over a lot of things that happened with them. That, I mean, I love them to death, and I know they love me to death, but like we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and that's something that I have to overcome because I'm just, you know, I love them, you know, and I want to have a meaningful relationship with them, but all of that comes back to me asking myself, where did you play a part in all this? And that's something that I have to do on an everyday basis. I have to always ask myself, what did you do, or what part did you play in that, you know? And it's about having that conscious contact, you know. Now, if you don't do these things, then you're blocked from because of it, like I was saying. And you have to understand too, there's a conscious and then there's an unconscious. That's something else that a lot of people have a really, really hard time with. That causes more problems for people than anything else I know. There's been people that I have talked with that really don't even believe that the unconscious mind even exists. Okay, I've met people who believe that that spirits or gods or you know something are what's actually talking to you. It's not an unconscious mind. So whenever that happens, what happens is unresolved issues gets packed into your brain, and it's back there. So you're hearing these voices and you're thinking that God's talking to you, but in reality, what's happening is you're talking to yourself, and you're saying that it's an outside force that's doing it. Okay, you're thinking externally, and by doing that, you're denying yourself the ability to resolve unfinished business within your life that's caused you grief, and it all has to do with pride and ego. Okay, now pride and ego creates denial, and it blocks us from sober thinking and true understanding. And the one thing about sober thinking that you have to understand is sober thinking is a state of mind, it's not a state of being. Okay, and I'll get into that later, but you know, pride and ego is what creates denial, and it blocks us from sober thinking and true understanding of what's going on in the world around us. Now, ego is when you do something that either makes you feel real big, makes you feel real grandiose, or you take pride in somebody else, you know, like, and this is something that I'm watchful about too, like saying that you're proud of somebody or taking actual pride out of something that somebody close to you has done, making you feel proud, you know what I mean? That builds on the ego. And not only does it make you feel big, but there's also another side to it too. Your ego and your pride, it also allows you to justify your own actions, and that's good or bad, because your son went off to university. You justify that because you justify your own life because look what my efforts have done. It's made him a college student. You know what I mean? Or um, this dude I had a resentment against. Frickin' he deserves for me to have a resentment against him because he did this. You see what I'm saying? I'm justifying the reason why I'm having a resentment because he did this. I should be resentful. You know what I mean? That's bad. So that's all about the ego. Okay? Now, you need to understand that for everything that we do that's good, and also for all the things that we justify in our ego, we also have an alter ego that does the opposite. Okay, so for every good thing that you're doing in your life, and for everything that you've justified your actions for, good or bad, then there's that alter ego that's in the back of your head, the subconscious mind, okay, the unconscious. And that alter ego is growing just as strong as what your ego is. So the bigger your ego is, the bigger your alter ego is. Okay? Now, when the ego grows, the alter ego grows too. Alright? Now that happens unconsciously in the back of your head. And when that happens, when certain things good happen in your life, okay, this is a good example. When you have good things that are happening in your life and they just keep going and they keep going, you have this thought of the other shoe dropping. You know what I mean? Something bad's going to happen that's going to ruin it. Now that is your alter ego. Okay? And you need to understand that that's what that is. That's your alter ego playing on you. So take that into consideration. Now, when the best thing to say now is get back, because I want to stay on topic. You need to understand that resentment is because of pride, okay? And pride comes before guilt, all right? Now, you got guilt, shame, and remorse. And that's what happens. That's the end result, okay? But resentment is caused because of your pride and your ego. So you have big pride, you've got pride, and you've got a big ego, and all of a sudden that's been bruised or hurt, and you develop a resentment from it. Now, as time goes by, that's going to cause you guilt, shame, and remorse. Okay? Now, subconsciously, what happens is we become driven by our guilt while justifying our actions and taking credit for the things that we've done. You see what I mean? So, it's kind of like you're making a list of all these great things that you've done, and you're just checking it off. Look how great of a person I am. I did this, I did this, I did this. And that's what your life becomes, you know. You're a great person because of the things that you've done. The best way I can say to alter that is, you know, doing things for others. You know what I mean? Go out and do things for others. Do things expecting nothing in return. You know what I mean? That's the best thing to do. Help other people and don't expect anything in return. Okay? As a matter of fact, do things without taking credit for it. And if you can, you know, try doing stuff for people without them even knowing who did it. You know, don't tell them afterwards either. Just do it and make it to where they don't even know that you did anything for them. You know what I mean? Um, and that's basically the best way of dealing with that kind of stuff. Because you have to avoid pride and ego. Pride comes before the fall, and that's the honest to God truth. It really is. So just be aware of stuff like that. You know. So for me, what I had to do is I had to finally start learning about admitting to another person about my wrongs. Okay. Now I had turned around and I had made this inventory of all the people who I had a resentment for, and I started learning about the resentment process and anger and resentment and all that stuff that I just explained to you. But after that, I had to take that list of people that I had a resentment for, and I had to take it to my sponsor or my accountability partner. And that was basically it. I had to take that to him. And now, when I did that, I took this list of all these people, and this is people all throughout my life, and I shared it with this person. And the thing about it is this person I trusted. You know what I'm saying? I trusted this person. That is something that I have to always go back over and say to people, this has to be somebody that you trust. Now you can, if you want, if the opportunity arises that you can go out and just meet some total stranger and just spill all of it out on them, you can do that. But you need to understand that, like for me and for a lot of people who want to live a spiritual life and have something better for themselves, they do this stuff in order to achieve something, and there's a goal involved. You know what I'm saying? So I'm striving to do something here. So when I go and I turn around and I gave this information to the person that I trusted, I wanted them to do something with that information. Okay? And that is what's important. It's really important because, like I said, for me, I'm so stuck in myself and so self-centered that everything's about me, and I'm not able to see myself from another person's point of view. So I take these resentments and I take it to them, and then I explain to them why I have these resentments. And all the time they're sitting there and they're listening to me. Okay? So while they're doing that, and like I said, preferably the person that you take these to is an accountability partner, somebody that you've chosen. I chose my sponsor, but while I'm doing that with him, I make sure that I chose somebody who has the ability to understand what it is that I've done. You know what I mean? By taking the inventory, they understood what I've done by doing it. So they have to be on the same level there, understanding that, look, I'm taking an inventory of myself, and this is what I've done. Okay, and what I'm planning on achieving. So beforehand they understood that this is what I've done, this is what I plan to achieve, and I explained it to them. Now, this person understood that before we went into it, okay? And what my sponsor had to do is my sponsor had to listen, and while he was listening, he was also taking an inventory of me as well. So I'm sitting there and I'm listing off all these people that I had a resentment for. And while I'm listing all of these people that I had a resentment for, he's writing out a list of all of the character defects that I had. Okay, so he's taking an inventory as well. Now the reason for that is because he's listening to my story. He's hearing it from his perspective. He's separate from my family, he's separate from my friends, and he's separate from me. And he's taking an honest evaluation of what I'm saying, and he's saying, look, this is your character defects. These are you're wrong. So this is where you played a part in it. You know what I mean? Even though I felt that this was where I played a part in it, he's doing the same thing. So we're going to find out what's going on there, you know. And he understood this before we even got into the process. So if you're not in one of these 12-step programs and you do want to do that and you want to get yourself an accountability partner and you want to run through an inventory with them, explain to them what it is that that you've done. You've taken an inventory of yourself, and also explain to them your plan, what it is that you plan on achieving from it. Okay. And that would be that person, him or her, preferably a man with a man, a woman with a woman, because women can relate to women a lot more than men can, and vice versa, you know. So, but that is preferable. But they are going to. You need to make sure that they understand that they're going to be doing an inventory of you too. Okay. Now, for all the resentments that you have, you're going to have to tell your accountability partner, and that accountability partner has to list the character defects in you to you. So by the time you're done, you'll finish off that list, and then you'll have another list of all your character defects, your shortcomings, whatever you want to call them. It's all the same thing. When you hear shortcomings, character defects, your wrongs, all of that stuff, it's basically the same thing. They're just using different words. It's a writing style. Most people used to do it so that they didn't use the same word over and over again. So you're finally to the point where now you're getting a list of all your character defects. These are also sins too. Basically, this is like the secular way of saying your sins. All right. Now, the one thing that you need to understand too, okay, is that whenever he's doing this, you need to realize that for everything there's an opposite, and that's one of the reasons why I got really interested in doing the stream that I did with Bob, though, because we were discussing duality and stuff of that nature, and I thought that was pretty cool that we were doing that, you know. So that is one of the reasons that I did it, because you need to understand that for everything there is an opposite, okay? Now, like I said, your accountability partner, sponsor, just whatever, you know, they have to list those sins or character defects that you have in each resentment, okay? Now, sometimes you'll get people who don't want to go that extremes, and they'll just tell you straight out, that's not bad, just throw that away, you know. Even in that case, don't be a control freak, you know what I mean? Don't flip out, just be okay with it and let it go. Alright, that's fine, but get a list of your character defects, because with all these resentments, you're going to start seeing repeating patterns that happen when you're going through them and discussing them with this person. And this happens over and over again all throughout your life. You're going to start realizing that there's patterns in your life. There's behaviors that have happened over and over and over again, and it goes back to insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Okay, and you're going to start seeing this stuff and recognizing it when you're doing this. Okay, now the thing is for everything there is an opposite. Okay, and you have to understand what those wrongs, sins, character defects are, so that you can come up with an opposite to that. And that's where we'll get into here in a little bit. After you're done, there's two ways of doing this. Now, I've heard of people burning their resentment list, and I've heard of people keeping them. Kind of on the wall about that. Burning your resentment list is fine, but the thing of it is you also keep the list of character defects that your accountability partner made for you. So you can keep the resentment list if you have a bad memory, because you're going to need to make another list later on. But you can also burn it and be done, and then later on in your when you go to make amends for people that you've harmed, you're going to have to still pull these people up. So if you have a bad memory, you can keep that resentment list so that you can keep it fresh in your mind, and you can be able to go through and put them on that list too, because they will eventually become a part of people that you have to make amends to. And that is where it goes against the grain, like I said. So all these people that you've had resentments for, you've gone through and you've found out where you played the part in this situation, and you've taken them completely out of the equation, and you've looked at yourself and said, this is where I played a part in it, and you've taken responsibility for your own actions. So now you have to go to these same people who you once had a resentment for, and you have to ask them for forgiveness. You have to ask them, you have to make amends with them. And I should actually hold off on that, because I said forgiveness. And I want to make a difference, or I want to differentiate the difference between making an amends and asking for forgiveness or saying I'm sorry. So I'll get to that here in a minute. But I do want to do that. Now, after you've burnt the resentment list, or if you kept it, you'll end up with this list of character defects that your accountability is made for you. Now, you have to look for the opposite of those character defects or those sins. Now, the best references that you can go through, or some of the stuff that I learned from, was you can go through the 7 deadly sins. That's a good way of doing it. There's also Saint Francis prayer. That's a good one too, because in there it talks about the opposites. It talks about duality and things of that nature. Where there is hatred, allow me to show love, I believe, stuff of that nature. So for every opposite, there, you know what I mean. You have to understand that you have to understand what the opposite of your sins are. So this is my sin. This is the opposite of it. So you have to understand that. And like I said, the 7 deadly sins is a really good way of doing it. Go according to that when you do your fourth or fifth step, or when I did my 5th step, I had to have my sponsor listen to what I said and then go off of the 7 deadly sins and categorize what sin that was that I had to work on. So, and that would lead me into my character defects. You see, working on my character defects and trying to get rid of them, or at least bring them down to a minimum, because nobody can really get rid of character defects or sins. They're always going to be a part of us. They have an old saying you can love me for my good qualities, or no, you can like me for my good qualities, but you better love me for my character defects. And the reason why they say that is because um, people have character defects. You know what I'm saying? So um, if you can't overlook somebody's character defects, then there's a good chance that you're not going to get along with them for very much time. You know what I mean? So every religion too, by the way, has this kind of setup, this kind of the equivalence of what Christians call sin. So you don't have to be a Catholic. You don't have to be a freaking preacher or non, you know, you don't have to be a regular church person other than the Catholic Church who doesn't believe in confession and stuff, you know, because that's what this really starts sounding like. To be honest, it sounds like going to confession and stuff of that nature, but it's not. Okay, but the whole thing about this stuff is like there's an equivalence to this when it comes to your sins or your shortcomings in every religion. You have the Christian religion, then you have the Buddhist, you have, it doesn't matter if you're um, um, Buddhist, it doesn't matter if you're Hindu, it doesn't matter, Muslim, it does, none of them, every single one of them has these concepts. So anybody can do this, you know what I mean? Just understand that for everything there's an opposite. So for all of those sins, character defects, whatever, there's an opposite of that according to your religion or not to your religion. And anybody can do this. So that is very, very important to understand. Now, that is what I wanted to do now. I wanted to mention the fact that you have to learn this stuff. This is just learning it, okay? Now, you have to find out what the opposite of your sins and character defects are, okay? And that's just learning it. Now, after that, you have to go and admit the exact nature of your wrongs, okay? And like I said, for everything there's an opposite, okay? So you need to find out what the opposites of your sins are, and you have to pay attention to when you are doing these things, and you have when you start paying attention to when you're doing these things, you also have to change your behavior. So as time goes by, you now know what the opposite of your wrongs are. And as time goes by, you'll be able to recognize your wrongs and you'll be able to change them because you know what the opposite of that is. If you're doing this bad behavior, just stop doing this bad behavior and start doing the opposite. And as time goes by, it'll get easier and you'll start doing things on an easier level and you don't have to worry about all that stuff. So, that is very, very important. This is probably the golden nugget when it comes to 12-step programs because they have really, really harnessed this. I've heard people talking about samsara and frickin' just shit like that, you know, and all of this crazy stuff when none of them even talk about this. They don't talk about, you know, your behaviors and changing from your bad behaviors to your good behaviors. And there's a lot of prayers involved. Don't get me wrong. There are tons and tons of prayers involved in this stuff. Praying all the time. But when it comes down to it, it is all about changing your behaviors. And as you change your behaviors and you start thinking with a good mind, then all of a sudden you start changing into a better person. And even if you don't believe it at first, what happens is you start believing it. You start thinking to yourself, "Hey, man, this is pretty cool." You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, you become a different person than what you were when you first started. And like I said, all of this stuff is personal experience as well as learning how to do this. And you'll hear people always say this, and I've said it too. Life is a process, and it really is. Good things happen to people that do good things. Bad things happen to people that do bad things. Um, but on the same token, bad things happen to good people, and good things happen to bad people. That's just the way life is. But we get a chance to make a decision. We are the ones who gets to decide what it is that we want. Um, I've heard people talk about predetermination and self determination. I believe it's a little bit of both. I believe that we have the right to make those decisions, which can change our life. But also, there are things that do happen. You know what I mean? If you do certain things will happen. So I think it's a little bit of both. Um, I, that's a little bit of that spiritual stuff I was telling you guys about. So those are some of the things that I do believe in, and this is something that has been really, really profound to me when it comes to my life and things that I've actually learned from it. And being honest, I'll tell you right now, I sobered up in 2003. I stuck with the 12-step programs for 8 years. After 8 years, I ended up not going to 12-step programs. Now, I could get into the whole reason why I stopped going, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to tell you right now, those programs saved my life. They did so much for me that I could never, ever repay them, and for that I am grateful. Maybe here before long I might go back and I might attend meetings and stuff of that nature. But people don't know what tomorrow brings. I had to go through a lot of things which changed my life, and being away from these meetings and stuff like that has also brought me closer to reality. I learned a lot about the reality of life. You know what I mean? When I first sobered up, I was all about being happy, joyous, and free. I had this, cobweb in my head where everything was beautiful and sunshine and stuff of that nature. And it was all about going to these meetings. I had become addicted to these meetings, just like I was addicted to drugs and alcohol. It got to around my 8th year, and that's when I finally decided not to go anymore. And I made that decision, and since then I've been around my family. I've gotten to actually know them more than what I did before. My parents are elderly now, and I help take care of them, and that's actually what has really opened my mind to a lot of things. I wish my life was happier, but it is what it is. And I still have to deal with all the issues of taking care of my parents and stuff of that nature, and being around my family and struggling with my sons and my sisters and my nephews and my nieces, and getting angry about the stuff that's not really important if I really stop and take a look at it. But at least I'm doing it, and that's what life's about. So this is like the whole spiritual aspect of things to me. learning how to live life on life's terms. That's another term that you'll hear a lot of from people, in these 12-step programs. But it's something that I had to learn, and what it really comes down to is I had to understand the opposite of my character defects, and then I had to pay attention and recognize when I was doing these things in my life, and change those behaviors. And now I know what the opposite of these bad behaviors are. I have to just start doing them, and that's where the action starts coming into play. So after that, that's when things start getting more into the prayer side, and that's when you have to start asking through prayer. You have to start asking your higher power to take away these shortcomings. Okay. Now this becomes a habit. It becomes instinct. The more you do it, the more you first you recognize your shortcomings, and then you pray. And then when you pray, you ask Him to take away your shortcomings. You know what the opposite of it is, and all the time that you're doing this, it becomes repetition. And the more repetition that happens, the more of a habit it becomes. So it's becoming habit that you recognize where you're doing things that are wrong, and you're automatically stopping, you're praying, and then you go and you do the opposite of it. Okay, so all of a sudden your thinking is you're changing your way of thinking, and this goes back to change, So it's pretty cool, and all of this is it's a profile. It really is. I mean that's really what it comes. It's an outline. It's an outline to life. Yeah, I've heard that too. And it's true. It really is. And these are spiritual principles, okay? These are not religious. They are in religion, but they are spiritual principles. And just understand, the difference between spirituality and religion is that religious people are sitting in church thinking about fishing, and spiritual people are fishing and thinking about God, you see? So that's all you got to understand. Keep it simple, you know what I mean? Ask your higher power to take away those shortcomings, and each time that those shortcomings crop up, pray, and also stop doing them. That's important. You got to remember to stop doing them. And as time goes by, you'll get better at recognizing your own bad behaviors, and you'll start replacing them with good behaviors, and then all of a sudden you're living your life and doing good things instead of bad things, and life works out. And that is really where the whole part of the program comes into. You're going through a change, a physical, actual change in the real world. You know what I mean? It's not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. You're becoming somebody, and you actually believe in the things that you're doing at this point, you know what I mean? So at this point you should be, if you're in a 12-step program, you should be up around the 7th step, and you're starting to walk the walk, and you're getting things down, starting to figure some stuff out. Now, sometimes you're going to have to do this stuff minute to minute. It's going to be on a minute to minute basis sometimes. Now, and this is for the rest of your life. But the cool part about the rest of your life thing is you do it for the rest of your life, one day at a time. Okay, because you don't think that far ahead. You don't think a week or a month or a year from now when it comes to this stuff. It's one day at a time. Okay. And that's the beauty of it, thinking one day at a time. you can set goals and you can set schedules and stuff like that, but what's happening right here and now, that's more important than what's going to happen a month from now. And that's a concept that a lot of people have a hard time dealing with, you know. So those are some key aspects that you have to understand and you have to learn. um, I know that uh, when it comes to one day at a time and doing this stuff for the rest of your life, a lot of people don't like that, you know what I mean? And they don't like the idea of having to keep an eye on when your character defects or your sins pop up and stuff like that, and then stop doing them and doing it on a minute to minute basis sometimes. But let me reassure you that as you go along and you keep doing this stuff and you keep practicing these things, you get better at it, okay? And the better you get at it, the easier it becomes, so that eventually it's just second nature. You know it. You recognize bad behaviors. Now, there's a flip side to that too, because what happens is while you're doing this stuff, and you're taking inventory of yourself, all of a sudden, all of the bad behaviors that everybody around you are doing starts popping up into your eyesight. You start seeing it, and that's when you go from taking your own inventory to taking somebody else's inventory, and then life becomes really, really interesting. Okay, because now you have to learn how to practice humility. And humility, when you hear that word humility, you know, people think, oh, he's practicing humility, he's just such a great guy. You know, that's a load of shit. Okay, key word is practice. Okay, and humility, when I practice humility, that means that I have an ego, I'm full of pride, and I'm self-centered. It's all about me. So when I'm practicing humility, that means I have to do it in order to change myself from being that person. Okay, so practicing humility isn't like all that great and noble of a thing, you know what I mean? If I was a great and noble person, then I wouldn't have to practice humility. It would come natural to me, you know what I mean? So that is really where things start to happen when it comes to when it comes to all of that stuff. You know, I had to learn it. It wasn't easy. I had to memorize these prayers. I had to learn how to get down on my knees and pray. And you know, I've even heard people say, and you know, it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not, just pray. You know what I mean? Just do it. If you make a habit of praying, you know, get down on your knees and pray. If you have knees problems, don't worry about getting on your knees. Just, you know, get down and pray. Then then you don't have to worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Or just get down on your knees. If something happens and there's a change in your life, is what I'm saying, then something worked. If nothing happens, then don't worry about it. You didn't lose anything. You know what I mean? But you tried it. You know what I mean? You tried it. So do stuff like that for about maybe 6 months and see if something happens in your life. Now, a lot of people that I've dealt with has had issues with mental illness, and here lately I've been noticing a lot of them when it comes to dealing with their mental illness. They like to avoid things like having a subconscious mind, and they don't want to get into routines where they have to actually change their behaviors. Um, and it seems like to me that they've fallen into this rut where they believe that this is a curse that's been put on them for the rest of their life. And for me, the thing that helped me out the most was when it was finally pointed out to me that, look, man, this isn't a disease. You know what I mean? That mental illness is an illness. And there's a difference between an illness and a disease. There really is. Now, an illness can be cured. A disease can't. You know, or well, they can be, but there's a mental illness can be like when you're ill from a cold. You know what I mean? You can get rid of a cold by taking your medicine. It's the same thing with your mental illness. You don't have to sit and take medicine for the rest of your life because you have a mental illness. You just don't have to. There's moral psychology and things of that nature that can help you out. So just remember that when you think about those things. You know what I mean? And it'll help you. It'll really, really help you. So with me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start talking about making a list of those that we've harmed. You know, now I had to learn how to do that as well. I had to go back and make another list of the people that I've harmed in my life, and I had to become willing to make amends to them. Now that the resentment list is taken care of, then you come to this point where you've already learned your character defects. You've learned the opposite of your character defects. You've started to somewhat get a handle of some of the people in your past that you've harmed, and you have to write that down on a list. These are the people that you've harmed, or that I've harmed. Okay. So I'm making a new list, basically, okay, and list those people that are on my resentment list. That's what I ended up doing, because I ended up finding out where I played a part and all that, and I ended up hurting them just as well as them hurting me. But the important part is I have to realize that I played a part in that. Okay, so I took them out of the equation altogether, and I said, okay, this is where I played a part. So once I freaking figured out where I played a part in that situation, I realized that I need to make an amends to that person, because I had done harm to them just as well as them doing harm to me, if they did, you know. So they ended up going on my list as well. Okay, and now I have to freaking make that new list, okay? So I went from the resentment list to making a list of my character defects to making the opposite of a list of the opposite of my character defects is. And now I'm making an amends list. So those are 4 lists that I had to make. Alright? And this is the kind of stuff that I started learning when it comes to spirituality and trying to change my life for the better and do things. And this is what I was trying to say. It's hard for me to actually talk about this stuff, because a lot of people have their dead set ways, you know, and it doesn't matter if they're into ghosts and UFOs, which, you know, if you guys have been around me for any significant amount of time, you know that I've gotten into UFOs, ghosts, and stuff of that nature. Strange, bizarre, and weird stuff, you know. I've heard a lot of amazing stories, you know, about spirituality and about the paranormal, about supernatural things. But this is my spiritual this is my spiritual journey. You know, there isn't really very much stuff there that would be exciting to those people. You know what I mean? So for me, it's kind of awkward for me to talk about this stuff. So um, I that's one reason why I wanted to do this. I did an interview before with my partner on Wonderful World of Weirdness, John Clark, about a year ago, and we kind of went through this stuff. So and we did. We got quite a bit of it done, and but there was so much more. You know what I mean? Like right here, this is making a list of people that I had to make amends to, people that I had harmed. You know, and that's because of my wrongdoings. And you also have to understand that by this point too, you start figuring out that there's more people involved too. Not only am I going to be putting people on my resentment list, on this new list, but I'm also going to be putting people on this list who I had no resentments for whatsoever. And by the time I made it to this process, I had started figuring out that there were more people that I had resentments for that I didn't know before. So I went back to my accountability partner and I told it to them and ran it by them first to see if I needed to add them to my resentment list, you know, because I could have been overdoing it. You know, I have a tendency of complicating the stuff, so I ran it by them, and after that, I started adding new people that I didn't think I had a resentment for, and I ended up having a resentment for. And also, there's people that I'd harmed that I wasn't aware of when I took my fourth step and my fifth step and made a list of all the people that I that did harm to, or that I had a resentment for. So things ended up coming up new that was on this list that wasn't involved in that one, because I'd gone through the whole process of looking at my character defects and changing my way of behaving towards the opposite of what my character defects were, you know. So that's kind of what happened at this point. Now, the one thing that I do have to also mention is that there's a difference between making an amends and saying sorry. Now, I mentioned this before and I said I'd come back to it. This is where I need to come back to it, because this is very important. Now, there's a difference between making an amends and apologizing or saying you're sorry. Now you need to understand that you've got to be willing to approach these people and say that you're willing to do whatever it takes to make an amends for what you have done. Okay? This is just having a willingness at this point. You have to become willing to say this. Alright? So in between actually doing it and taking and doing the list, while you're doing the list, you've also got to become willing to do it. If you think that you're able to do it, your willingness could be there, but there's a lot of people who really aren't willing to go to their enemies and ask for their, ask if they can make amends to them for what they've done wrong. That's a really, really big order to make. So just understand that, I had to become willing to do this stuff. So, and a lot of the time, I didn't have the opportunity to make amends to people, and there are still some people that I do have to make amends to, but I haven't been able to because I don't know where they are. I don't know um, what they've been doing. I don't know any of that, you know. But what I ended up having to do is I ended up having to pray for them. I also ended up having to tell myself that if the opportunity does come up to where I can make amends to those people, then I need to do it. Just being willing to make an amends to those people is important. So that's something that I had to understand, you know. And making amends is not saying sorry. They already know you're sorry. You know what I mean? You have to tell them that you're willing to do whatever it takes to make an amends for what you've done, and that's the whole thing. So this isn't about apologizing. This is about making an amends, and that's very, very important. Now, the thing about this is we start getting into making the actual amends. Now, there's certain things that you have to be careful about. Making amends to people that you've harmed is very, very important. Very important, but it's also dangerous. So, first, understand that an amends is an action word. Okay. Now, I've already mentioned saying sorry isn't acceptable. They know you're sorry, so you have to say that you were wrong for doing what you had done. Period. You were wrong, and that's it. Now, when you approach a person, you tell them that you'll do whatever it takes to make an amends to that person, as long as nobody else is hurt in the process. Okay. Now that's very important. You make an amends to a person as long as it doesn't hurt other people, them or other people. Now, it's kind of controversial on yourself. I've heard some people say that you go to any expense or something like that to get that spiritual experience or whatever. So you're willing to do whatever it takes to stay sober. But then I've also heard people that have said that you don't put yourself in danger, which I'm not one way or the other. I'm just saying, like, you'll hear that those two things. So that's kind of controversial in that whole aspect of how you plan on doing it. But you don't make an amends to somebody if it's going to cause harm to them or others, and you have to be aware of that. So as long as nobody else is hurt in the process, it's fine to make an amends to somebody. And when you say amends, what happens is when you say you're willing to do whatever it takes to make an amends, that means if they have something that needs to be done and they say, well, you can go and do this for me, as long as it doesn't cause harm to them or another person, then you can go do it. You know, go re-roof their house for them. You know what I mean? To make an amends for them. Go to the bank, freaking drop off a freaking payment form, you know, at the bank. Just don't steal anything, you know what I mean? Things of that nature. Make those kinds of amends. Go buy them groceries for a month, 2 months. Make sure that they have food in their house, you know, if they're having a hard time eating. Things of that nature. But you're willing to make an amends to them. Those are amends. Those aren't apologies. That's where amends is an action word. Okay. Now, you need to understand too. like I said, as long as nobody else is hurt in the process. This means if you have cheated on a woman or a man, uh, you do not tell them who the woman or the man that you cheated with was. You don't. That information doesn't have to be um, shared. That's just because you're causing harm to the person. You know what I mean? Now, uh, in a lot of situations, these situations like this becomes very sincere. Um, so it's kind of tricky on that one, on if you should make an amends to someone for committing adultery. Now, if you're the wife or the husband who was married and committed adultery, and you go to them, understand that if these people have issues of their own, your husband or your wife, then it's probably not a good idea for you to tell them that you committed adultery with somebody, because a lot of times they are going to want to know who that person was that you committed adultery with. And when that happens, if you don't tell them who that person is, shit's gonna hit the fan. So first I would suggest that you talk to an accountability partner and you would run it by them and see what their take on it is. And after that, I would go off that. Be honest with you, I wouldn't just jump into it head first. I ended up having my second son because of not making a good decision, and I should have actually ran this by my sponsor, which I didn't. It ended up me going to my ex-girlfriend and trying to make an amends to her, and she lunged at me and we started making out, and the next thing you know, but there was a lot of situations, or there were things that could have been avoided if I would have handled that a lot better, you know. I should have ran it by my sponsor, but I decided not to, and I ended up getting caught up into a relationship that wasn't very good. It ended pretty badly, so that is one situation that I do have to say when it comes to that. You know, run this stuff by your accountability partner / sponsor when you're doing this stuff, and it's very important. I you know, before I did this, I wanted to try to talk about spirituality without keeping it, or without even trying to associate it with like the 12 steps or with any 12-step program, but I'm finding that it's really hard to do, because you know, I went into this program and I learned all this stuff and I burned it into my brain, and this is stuff that I know and I live by even to this day. I haven't been back to an AA meeting in over 13 years, you know, but these are things that I still know, and I know that I need, and it's because I practiced it for 8 years straight and I burned it into my brain. And it just, for me, it's really interesting how this all has developed in my mind, you know. And when it comes to dealing with stuff that's been going on, you know, I really wish that I could say that all of this paid off and that my life got better, but it didn't. All I can really say about it was that I ended up staying sober, which was a miracle. I couldn't stay sober. Whenever I first started doing this stuff, I just could not do it no matter what, no matter how many times I tried. I'd always get drunk or get high again. Um, but this time, something stuck, you know. And the thing about it is, it's like I learned this stuff. I stuck to it. I started learning how to read books, um, educating myself. So that was one thing that was really life changing to me. You know, I started wanting to learn. It became almost an obsession, which yeah, it was an obsession. It's just like I said with the whole thing with doing AA. You know, I had I had transferred my addiction from drug and alcohol to AA and the 12 steps and stuff of that nature. I just transferred one addiction to another. So for me, that was a situation that I had to deal with. I ended up having to go on Odyssey and hit refresh. The screen was acting up. Alright, so going through and checking everything. Man, I actually am doing pretty good. According to my estimations, I'm about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. I've really cut through. I've made it all the way up to right around the ninth step. You know, this at this point, you're learned about your sins, your character defects. You've learned about what's the opposite of those, and you're changing your behaviors, and you're starting to see results. You know, now you're having to go out and you're having to go to the people who were once your enemies, and you have to ask them if you can make amends to them. Not only that, but you're going out to people that you've harmed that you don't have resentments for, and you're doing the same thing for them. I also learned about, you know, behaviors and on through this whole thing, and I'm like, dude, you treated this person like a complete freaking dick. You know what I mean? You acted like a complete dick to this person. You know, this was wrong. And that sticks into your head too. And then it gets back into what I was talking about before. You know, you start learning about, or you start seeing all of these other things going on around you from people who had absolutely nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. They have the same kind of character defects that you have, and you're seeing them, you know, and it starts all of a sudden life starts shifting. So now you become the person that freaking sees the same stuff in other people that you once had, and that goes to a whole different level. You know, that goes to a level where I have to start practicing how to show humility, watch what I say to people, and stop being so critical about it. You know, even though I see these flaws in other people, I need to just kind of allow them to learn the way I had to learn, you know. That doesn't mean that I can't reach out and try to be a friend to them and stuff like that, but I can't preach to them. I learned that in the fellowship, you know, with the group. Like I said, you know, the group taught me that it's better to lead by example rather than be a preacher. You know, I don't have to preach to people in order for people to change. You know, I can show them by example. Look, this is the way I am, you know, and you can be the same person. You know, just hang out with me, let's do some shit, let's be cool, and you can be the same. You can do the same thing. You know, life doesn't have to be so hard, and I don't have to go door to door knocking on doors saying, you know, Jesus loves you, and show up on church on blah blah blah. You know, I don't have to be that way. I don't have to walk around with pamphlets and tell people how much Jesus loves them. You know, people don't really like that. And what it comes down to is trying to be of maximum service. And I think that doing stuff like that is more harmful than it is helpful. Oh, man, I gotta get me. I'm gonna take a drink of this. Alright. Yeah, so just when it comes to doing these amends, make sure that you're being very, very careful about who you're making these amends to and the motives behind it. Okay, don't make an amends to somebody in order to make yourself feel better. You know what I mean? Um, Even though you know that this is going to cause harm to that person, you still decide to do it because it'll make you feel better to get it off your chest. You know what I mean? You can say, yes, I did it, and then be done with it, and you'll have a clear conscience. Well, what you just did to this person harmed them. You know what I mean? So that's not good. Don't don't do that. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds kind of complicated. You know what I mean? But it's really not. You know, don't try to make an amends to somebody to clear your own conscience, even though you know that it's going to hurt them, because that's not cool. Um, you're just going to have to bear the weight and be done with it. You know. Now, another thing that I want to also mention is something that's very serious, and this has to do with people who sober up from drugs, especially. Okay. Um, and I know I've said that I wasn't wanting to get into all that stuff, but I am going to say this. If you're sobering up, don't think that you have to go and pay the dope dealer money, okay, because that you owe them, okay. Now, if you get into that way of thinking, first of all, you're putting yourself in a situation where you could actually go back to drugs, and second of all, when you give money to this person, it goes right to what I was talking about. You don't want to make an amends that'll cause harm to other people. So that means that you have to understand that this money that you're giving to that dope dealer is going to be used to buy more dope to give to somebody else. So through your contribution, you're actually making it to where another person is being harmed. So don't go and think that you have to freaking pay money to the dope dealer. I've actually met a few people that thought that way, thought that they were thinking right by doing that, and I know that sounds crazy, but people do honestly believe that stuff. So just don't think that you have to do that, because that's not very smart, first of all, and second of all, you don't want to cause harm to another person, so don't feed the beast, you know what I mean? Alright, so we finally have covered a lot of things when it comes to making amends. Alright, now the thing of it is like we are now getting to the point where you have to continue to take your personal inventory, and you have to admit your wrongs whenever possible. So what it was is I learned about being honest and open-minded and willing, remaining teachable. I learned to open myself up to another person and allow them to hear about the people that I had resentments for, and in return I got their feedback and a list of the character defects that I had because of those resentments, taking that other person out of the equation and allowing this person to take inventory of me. Um, Now, this person was somebody who wasn't um, involved with me on a personal level, like a family member, um, or like a close friend, anything of that nature. It was somebody who was neutral, able to look at it from an objective point of view, and that person took an inventory of me and he listed out what my character defects were. Now, character defects are nothing more than, well, you'll hear terms like shortcomings, character defects, my wrongs. Um, these are all the equivalents of sin. It's all one and the same when you hear people talk about that. And every principle that I've had here that I've mentioned to you, it's not bound to one religious belief. As a matter of fact, it's all of these spiritual principles can be found in every single religious or religion all around the world. Okay, these are things that they all believe in one way or the other. So it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or a Buddhist or a Hindu or if you're a Muslim. You can do this stuff according to your religion, or if you're not a religious person, you can do it as an agnostic or as an atheist. Everybody understands the concept of right and wrong, good and bad, light and darkness, hate and love. So you know what this stuff is. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. These are all spiritual principles that work, and all you have to do is want to do it. And that's what it basically comes down to. So just understand that, okay? And when it comes to that, I ended up learning all of this stuff, and I learned this stuff, and I ended up learning about myself and the things that are wrong with me. And today, I pick up on things that I do, and I may not correct them, but at least I'm aware of them. You know what I mean? I am aware of the fact that this stuff is going on, and that I need to change. If I change or if I don't change, that's one thing, or that's another thing, but I do know that I need to change, and that's what it really, really comes down to. So, that's the reason why I had to learn how to I had to learn my way to right thinking. I had to understand that I needed to become a better person, because I wasn't even aware that I was really being a bad person, and to some extent, and a lot of the things that I was doing, I was just running around living life the way I was taught how to live it, and it never even crossed my mind. So I had to learn that this is the right way of living, this is the wrong way of living, this is what you're doing wrong, and this is what you should be doing right. I've heard people say, well, you need to look at all the good things that you've done, and things of that nature for taking inventory. And that's not the goal in this process. The goal in this process is to change yourself so that you have a better life, you have a spiritual experience, you have a conscious contact with what you perceive as God or a higher power, because you're being blocked from that consciousness, you know what I mean? And the only way to get rid of that block is to work on these things so that you'll have a direct conscious contact with your higher power and be able to think right and everything. So basically, after you do all this stuff and you make the amends, you have to continue to watch this stuff, and you'll have to continue to admitting your wrongdoings whenever possible, whenever it happens. This is the new, the the new um, resentments and the new uh, con- uh, character defects that crop up, and this is the new people that you treat like crap. You have to go back and you have to apologize, or you have to make amends to them, as well as being able to make amends to those that you weren't able to make amends to before, if they ever like come into your life or something. So you're doing this on a day-to-day basis, and you're uh, you're doing this for the rest of your life. And it's like I said earlier, you're doing it one day at a time, though, for the rest of your life. Don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about a week. Don't think about a year. You're doing it today, and that's what you have to focus on, and that is very, very important. A lot of people don't understand that concept. A lot of people don't want to understand that concept because they have um, they're very, very orientated on schedules and careers and things of that nature, and making money and becoming rich and powerful and all that stuff. And in the process, they lose themselves. They lose who they are. Um, and none of this has to do with if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're black, white, gray, yellow, any of that, okay? This has to do with um, you being human, you know. Um, it doesn't matter if you're rich, it doesn't matter if you're poor, it doesn't matter if you're an alcoholic and drug addict or just a regular person. These are things that needs to be dealt with, and a lot of people have learned how to do this naturally. A lot of people don't even care about it. They don't have to worry about it, because, like with me, I had to learn this stuff because I know that if I didn't, I would end up dead. Okay, so this became a necessity for me. So this goes into the whole category of wants and needs. See, I want to live a life where I don't have to worry about taking care of resentments, but if I don't take care of resentments quick, then they begin to fester, and all of a sudden I start developing guilt, shame, and remorse. Then the next thing you know, I'm drunk and high again, and later you can find me dead in a gutter somewhere. I have a tendency of sleeping in streets when I'm drunk. Got a whole bunch of cool drinking stories too, about pissy pants and puking all over myself and walking around butt naked. Cool stuff that comes with drinking, So I suggest that when it comes to this stuff, don't just think of it as things that you want. You know what I mean? Most people don't want this stuff. Most people need it, though, who actually do it. I had to do it, and it's not very popular. There aren't very many people out there who would be willing to go through this kind of stuff, but it was something that I did have to do, and I had to do it for me, and I still have to do it to this day, even though like I said, haven't gone to meetings in quite a long time. I still have to do it in order to keep my head balanced and be able to think right. And I fell miserably at all of this stuff. I really do. I really do. I haven't been able to really um, get into um, feeling all that great about life, to be honest with you. And the reason for that is because life gets real quick. You know what I mean? You you start figuring out that that life is serious. There's reality. There's a place where the rubber hits the road, and it doesn't have anything to do with being, spiritual. It just has to do with being life. Now, there's ways that you can make your life better if you choose to make good decisions. And making a decision or making a good decision and a bad decision is important. What's right and what's wrong, and being able to take a look at your own behaviors and say, look, man, you screwed up. You need to go back and make an amends to this person. That right there is very important, and that's what this part is all about. It's about taking an inventory of yourself on a day-to-day basis and admitting your wrongdoings to those people that you've done harm to, because that stuff will eat away at you. Pride and ego are what causes resentments, and resentments eventually turns into guilt and shame. Pride will get you into trouble, and resentment will keep you there. So just think about that, and understand that that's what this is really all about. My pride will kill me, so I have to end up doing all this stuff in order to not die from this shit. I know that it will happen if I'm not careful. I ended up talking about some of this stuff earlier on a Naroki 5 show whenever he brought the topic up, and a guy that we both know named B said that we were depressing people. Well, for me, I have to say, I'd rather be depressing than dead. And that's just the way it is. I haven't talked about this stuff in a long time, to be honest with you, and I thought that I would actually say something that was more spiritual, but I guess I didn't. I mean, I don't know for sure if I did or if I didn't within the last 2.5 hours, but I gave it my shot. I tried to say what I could do and bring up as much as I could about the subject, but that's about the best I could get when it comes to this spiritual stuff. And I mentioned continuing to take inventory on a day-to-day basis. Keep track of your character defects. And as you do this, also remember, I mentioned this earlier. Okay, as you do this, you start keeping track of your character defects. It'll become easier and easier as time goes by. It's about repetition and more repetition. Create positive habits, replacing the old bad habits with good new habits over and over again, and that becomes a part of your being. It becomes who you eventually want to become, and you start developing, and try to be open-minded enough to look at all those character defects, all those 7 deadly sins, and see if you can find all of them, those sins in your life, those different aspects, and work on them. All of a sudden you're working on your character defects, and you're taking care of your personal life. You're doing the deal, and all of a sudden the freaking dog likes you. You know what I mean? And freaking the old lady's coming back because she thinks you're just the shit. You know what I mean? Because you care and you're sensitive. You know, things of that nature. So, just those are what actually starts becoming the positive parts of your life if you want that. You start getting up and you start cleaning your house and making your bed every day and freaking taking showers when you're supposed to and shit like that. You know, you become a different person, and that's all because you are practicing this stuff on a day-to-day basis, keeping an eye on your character defects, and it's becoming easier for you as time goes by. Also, you also have to understand that this has a lot to do with prayer and meditation as well. You need to develop good prayer habits and meditation to improve your conscious contact with the God of your understanding, or God. These are things that do help you. I wish I could say that I do that stuff, but like I said, these are things that I've learned. These are things that I know. I was praying and I was doing meditation for the longest time, but I have to admit I haven't done the prayer and meditation in quite a while. I got to the point where I decided that prayer is still an act of selfishness. It's me asking God if he exists. Don't know for sure or not, but for something. You know what I mean? It's a selfish act. Now, that's when I decided that I wasn't going to pray no more. I have no problem with anybody wanting to pray for me. If you want to pray for me, go for it. You know what I mean? It's just I personally feel that prayer is a selfish act of me asking God for something. So I stopped doing that. I do occasionally meditate, but I haven't done it in quite a while. I stopped doing it on a regular basis. I would say about, oh my God, about 15, 16 years ago, 15 or 14 years ago, somewhere around there. It did cause stress on me. It caused me a lot of issues that I really need to focus on. So the meditation was really the hardest thing for me to give up. Now, don't get me wrong, going to meetings and doing stuff of that nature was pretty rough because I'd become habitual about it. For the first 8 years of me being sober, I was constantly going to meetings and constantly hanging out with people in AA and NA and all these places. But I had the hardest time when it comes to the meditation. The prayers, I got them down to a habit to where I'm not lying to you. I could actually get up out of bed, and before I even stood up, I would be on my knees and I would do prayer right next to my bed, and it became a habit. The first thing that I thought of was do a prayer. I was pretty amazed by that. But then, as time went by, I decided that was just an empty prayer. It meant nothing. It was just a ritual. And that's what it actually started feeling like. It was a ritual that all I did was develop the habit of getting out of bed before I even stood up, getting down in the prayer position and saying the same prayers, and that right there is probably what became the beginning to the end of my career in AA. I like I said, got obsessed with AA, and I had to eventually call it quits on going to meetings. And the reason for that, I'm not going to get into bad mouthing or anything of that nature, but the reason for that was I'd gone through some issues with my life where I wasn't being motivated enough to like go out into the world and be a part of my family. Um, get up and start getting active and doing things that was productive for myself. Um, Slowly, as time uh, drew on, I started pulling away from being sociable, and I with my family and stuff. But when it came to going to meetings and stuff, I was going to all these meetings. I was chairing meetings even. I ended up freaking going out on Friday nights playing volleyball with people in freaking these 12-step programs. Everything rotated around them, and nothing rotated around being around people in my family and my friends and stuff of that nature. So as time went on, I was working, and things were getting really, really hard. I was living on my own in an apartment, one bedroom apartment, and just I could not cope. And after a while, man, you know, I snapped, and I walked away from all of it. I was barely able to freaking pay on the bills that I owed the bank. I had a payday loan out that was freaking took me almost 6.5, 7 months to pay off all the way. I finally got the late fees covered on my bank. I still owed rent on the apartment that I had, but I eventually got it caught up. And as I got it caught up, I was going to move out, and that's when I ended up moving in with my aunt. And from that point on, my dad moved to Evansville, where I was living at the time, and he convinced me into keeping this apartment. So I kept the apartment and kept it for about 6 more months. And in the end, what happened was is I ended up having a rent that was owed. And in Indiana, if they want to, they can take you to court every single month to show up for court for a past due bill. And I kept doing that. And like I said, slowly as time went by, the stuff started wearing down on me, and I just finally snapped. I gave up. I started backing away from social events even more, till finally I moved back to Illinois. Started taking care of my parents, and isolated from people in the outside world, you know. I still believe in a lot of this stuff, but like I said, it just life takes a whole new path for you. You start learning things that are really, really reality. It really kicks you in the ass, and that's where I'm at right now, you know. So I continue to work on my inventory and everything, but I really do have to say that my prayer and my meditation is something that I really do need to get back into and start working on. Kind of refocus on those character defects, maybe get back to meetings and hook up with a sponsor and get things back on track, become responsible again, become a responsible part of society. do what I know I need to do. Now, another thing that I do want to mention before I walk away from this stuff is carrying, you know, being of maximum service to other people. You know, and carrying uh, a message to people that life can get better, even with all the stuff that I just said and the things that are happening in my life. You know, that's not a negative thing. That's actually a positive thing because I'm actually opening up and I'm letting you guys know about it. You know, and maybe there's somebody out there who's just like me and went through the kind of experiences that I went through that needs to hear this stuff. And if you're out there, just understand that you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there who deal with stuff of this nature. This doesn't have to do with just alcohol and drugs. This has to do with mental illness, which a lot of people have an issue with. This has to do with one person reaching out to another and sharing their experience, you know, their strength and their hope with one another. Yeah, this is, you know, the things that are important in the end. You know, doing work, you know, with other people, reaching out to them and being of service to them, being of maximum service to your fellow man is how I like to say it because I learned it from AA, and I believe that is probably the most important thing. Carrying a message of all, you know, carrying a message to them, you know, that life can get better, you know, that you've came from somewhere that was pretty rough and you overcame something, and or you overcame your problems and you're a better person for it, you know. Help when needed to, you know, but don't overdo it. Whenever somebody needs your help, be of help to them. You know, don't overdo it. Don't become a charity. Don't become a charity. Don't let people take advantage of you and stuff of that nature. But if there's a way that you can help people, then do it. And it's like I said before, you know, do something nice for people, and don't take credit for it. Don't even let them know that you did something nice for it. Just do it out of the kindness of your heart without them even knowing that you did it, and do that so that you don't take credit for it. You know what I mean? Doing a good deed without taking credit is probably the noblest thing that a person can do. So try helping when needed, and doing something nice for somebody without taking credit for it. And if you can, do it without them even knowing that you were the one who did it. And that'll help you out a lot, you know. And there's something else that I do want to mention too. It's something that I mentioned before, okay? Just remember that sober is a way of thinking, and it's not a way of being. Alright? Now, sober thinking, just so you guys know, this is how it was explained to me. Sober thinking is having your head in the clouds, but your feet are firmly on the ground, okay? And that has a lot to do with being grounded, you know. It's okay to think of, you know, spiritual, high-minded things, but you also have to have your mind firmly grounded in something, you know what I mean? The God that you believe in has to be a God that is grounded in your thoughts. It has to be real, you know. It can't be pretend. It can't be this magical person that you speak to in prayers and he answers all your questions, you know. This has to be something that functions in your life, something that you believe in and you know is real. That's what I do know. I'm the type of person who I like to call myself a Gnostic. I also don't believe in a lot of the religious texts that are put out, because I know that those are created by men. Now, the principles that are within those texts, those are spiritual principles, and I respect those. But I don't believe that religions were made for God. I believe they were made for men, because let's face it, the majority of people on the face of this planet needs to be told what to do. It's a sad fact, but it's the truth. There aren't too many people out there who can think for themselves. They need to be guided. They need to be told what to do so that frickin' they can function. And I'm even one of those people who have to do that as well. After what I've just said, you can clearly hear it and see it. So, but there are areas where I can think on my own, and I can have that close contact to my idea of what God is, and it doesn't have to be influenced by the Bible. It doesn't have to be influenced by the Quran or any other thing. I don't have to have a special brand to make it to heaven. I don't even have to believe in heaven. I just have to have a conscious contact with something that I consider to be God. So, with that being said, I'm going to cut this 15 minutes short. I hope you guys enjoyed. Now, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. If nobody has told you that they love you, I love you from the bottom of my heart. And the reason why I say that is because I learned that from a really, really great man in AA. His name was Gary Fulkerson. He passed away quite a while ago, but I did learn a lot from him, and I think of him as a great person. And at the end of a meeting, he would always say, if nobody told you they loved you, Gary loves each and every one of you from the bottom of your heart. Just keep coming back and wait for the miracle to happen, like it's happened to me and so many other people within these rooms. Just keep the bottle plugged, or keep the plug in the jug. Do the next right thing. And with that, I will end